So for you to say everybody's on the same page was a complete lie. Now insert, here's Adam Silver. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver said Tuesday night he is tracking WNBA collective bargaining sessions very closely. I speak for Mark as well. We have been involved with this league for 3 decades. I talked to the people who are at the negotiating.
Doing right now isn't really getting us anywhere. So if that means that Adam and Mark need to come to the table, we're more than happy to have that and just...
Adam Silver didn't just step into the WNBA's collective bargaining discussion. He flipped the table. This was not a neutral gesture or a symbolic show of support. It was a deliberate power move that instantly shifted leverage and narrowed the range of possible outcomes. When the NBA commissioner publicly stated that games must be played and a deal must be reached, he wasn't offering commentary, he was drawing a line. And that line mirrors what Caitlin Clark signaled weeks earlier when she distanced herself from the Players Association's hardline messaging.
Now insert, here's Adam Silver, and that he and Deputy Commissioner Mark Tatum would both be willing to join the prolonged negotiations to finalize.
Now the most powerful figure in professional basketball is backing that same reality-based position. That changes everything. Silver's comments landed at a critical moment. The league is racing to protect off-season initiatives, expansion timelines, and unprecedented momentum. His involvement isn't about advising from the sidelines. It's about enforcing stability. Progress in Silver's framework requires compromise, not moral posturing, not ideological standoffs, and not demands disconnected from financial reality.
Also said he has great relationships with many of the players and believes the sides are on course for a solution. The current 40-day extension ends January 9th, and that date is fastly approaching. Okay, he says, I remain optimistic we'll get something done, but whether that means I'm physically sitting at the table for the negotiation, Silver said. And again, I speak for Mark as well. We have been involved with this league for 3 decades. In essence, I care enormously about it and want it to be successful, and I want the players to feel fairly treated as well. And I realize there's been a disconnect, especially over the last...
And yet, as negotiations grind on, the public conversation keeps circling the same issue: player pay. There is growing acknowledgement that WNBA athletes are undercompensated relative to the league's recent growth. But one crucial detail keeps getting glossed over. The Players Association's push for a revenue split, originally framed as 50-50ths, later adjusted to roughly 30%, has quietly disappeared from Silver's framing altogether. That omission is not accidental. Silver has consistently emphasized flat dollar increases, improved benefits, and infrastructure investments, not percentage-based revenue sharing. That directly challenges the union's core negotiating strategy. His remarks came on December 17th during the NBA Cup Finals in Las Vegas, just weeks before the current CBA extension expires on January 9th. That leaves less than 3 weeks to bridge what insiders describe as a significant gap. Right now, players are asking for approximately 30% of league revenue. The league is offering closer to 15%. Silver is urging a middle ground, but critically, he's rejecting the method the union is using to calculate its demands. He's not debating fairness. He's debating feasibility.
And now let's get to the actual video so we can get more dialogue of what Breanna Stewart had to say. They trying to hardball. The owners aren't going to give in to all this nonsense. They're trying to hardball, these players are. And at the end of the day, Adam Silver is with Caitlin Clark. Y'all need to compromise and get this damn deal done and stop playing games.
Hey, Stewie. Good to see you. I had 2 questions. The first, Adam Silver spoke ahead of the Cup and said that if necessary, he'd be up for coming to the bargaining table, him and Mark Tatum. I'm just wondering, do you think that would be beneficial? Would there be value to having Adam's presence at the bargaining table?
That distinction becomes clearer when you examine Breanna Stewart's response. Stewart openly acknowledged that the current approach isn't getting players anywhere. In plain terms, the Players Association's tough stance hasn't produced results. The union opted out of the CBA back in October, expecting ownership to bend on revenue sharing. Instead, there have been 2 expansion plans moving forward without player input, and now the NBA commissioner himself potentially entering negotiations. Stewart says she'd welcome Silver at the table, framing his involvement as a way to help ownership better understand what players want and how they feel. But that framing reveals how much the power dynamic has shifted. That's not the language of leverage. It's the language of seeking external pressure.
The season is going to run from fall to April, which is in direct competition with Unrivaled. What were your immediate thoughts when you heard about Project B? And what's the long-term answer for the landscape of women's basketball? Is it to have one premier league? Is it to continue developing all of these leagues? Like, what is truly the answer? What is the ideal world for the women's basketball landscape?
Yeah, I mean, I think my immediate thoughts when I saw Project B, I was kind of like, well, they saw what worked. You know, they saw the success that we had here at Unrivaled, and they wanted to be a part of that in their own way and try to do it. But at the same time, knowing, what...
The problem is simple. Silver's position is already clear. He is not coming in to enforce a 50-50 split or overhaul the league's financial structure. His objective is colder and more direct. Reach a deal that keeps games on the court and business moving forward. That requires compromise, not victory for one side. For players who built their strategy around non-negotiable demands, this changes everything. Stewart even acknowledged that multiple outcomes can exist where both sides walk away feeling satisfied. That's a notable retreat from earlier messaging, where revenue sharing was framed as a moral imperative rather than a bargaining position. For months, the union treated percentage-based revenue sharing as the floor, not the ceiling. Flat salary increases were dismissed publicly, and flexibility was framed as betrayal. Now that posture is cracking. When a central leader admits both sides need to give ground, it signals a realignment. It also creates internal tension. Some players align themselves fully with the original strategy. Others never had the financial buffer to endure a prolonged standoff. As negotiations drag on, the gap between leadership rhetoric and on-the-ground reality becomes harder to ignore. That tension deepens when off-season ventures enter the conversation. When Stewart was asked about Project B, the new 3-on-3 league scheduled to run from fall through April, her response was revealing. She acknowledged it borrowed from Unrivaled's model, then pivoted quickly to promote Unrivaled's advantages: player equity, centralized resources, and control. What she didn't mention mattered more than what she did. She avoided acknowledging that Project B's schedule aligns more cleanly with the WNBA calendar. She didn't address how it offers players a viable alternative to overseas play without compressing the WNBA season. Instead, Project B was framed as a copycat, while Unrivaled was positioned as the superior option. That wasn't neutral commentary. It was promotion.
Doing right now isn't really getting us anywhere, so if that means that Adam and Mark need to come to the table, we're more than happy to have that, and just making sure everybody understands what we want and how we feel, and realizing that both things can be true together. Everybody can agree and get what they want out of this, but there has to be some mutual, some things in common happening first. So yeah, if Adam wants to come, I would love to.
And that's where conflicts of interest come into focus. The Players Association is supposed to represent athletes across all financial situations and career stages. But some of the most influential voices in negotiations are also deeply invested in an off-season league that benefits directly from a shorter, more rigid WNBA calendar. For many players, a longer WNBA season and flexible off-season options are more valuable than a compressed alternative league. When leadership priorities tilt toward personal ventures, it complicates the union's credibility. Caitlin Clark flagged this weeks ago. As negotiations stalled, divisions became public. Despite Commissioner Kathy Engelbert's insistence that the roster was unified, players like Dejanai Carrington and others openly sided with Clark's call for stability. That internal split helps explain why talks have stalled, and why Adam Silver is stepping in directly. Silver didn't come alone. He made it clear that Deputy Commissioner Mark Tatum is also willing to sit in on negotiations. That detail matters. Tatum oversees league operations and international growth. He doesn't involve himself unless serious business risk is on the table. And right now, the WNBA has plenty at risk.
Said ahead of NBA Cup final in Las Vegas. I talk to the people who are at the negotiating table on a daily basis, and I've said before, we, the NBA, WNBA collective, acknowledge that our players deserve to be paid significantly more than they have so far based on the increased success of the league, and it's just a question now of finding a meeting of the minds in terms of what is a fair.
The league is expanding Golden State next season, Toronto and Portland in 2026. New media rights deals are expected to bring in roughly $2.2 billion over 11 years starting in 2025. Momentum has never been stronger. A work stoppage now wouldn't just slow growth, it could erase it. At the same time, the league cannot allow unchecked revenue-based compensation while still operating at a loss. A 30% or 50% split sounds compelling until the math is applied. The WNBA generates roughly $200 million annually. 30% equals $60 million for 144 players. About $417,000 each before accounting for operating costs, travel upgrades, facilities, expansion fees, and marketing. Once those realities are included, the structure collapses. Silver understands this because the NBA lived it. The NBA didn't adopt a 50-50 split until it was profitable, stable, and globally entrenched. The WNBA, in its 28th season, is only now approaching true viability. Demanding NBA-level splits at this stage is a mismatch between aspiration and reality. That's why Silver is focused on growth first, redistribution later. Meaningful salary raises, better travel standards, expanded benefits, and revenue sharing tied to profitability benchmarks. Those are realistic outcomes. What is not on the table is a raw percentage of revenue divorced from financial health. This is where Caitlin Clark's position becomes central. Her games averaged roughly 1.2 million viewers, compared to about 400,000 without her. That's where real leverage lies. Casual fans aren't debating CBA language. They're watching because games are being played. Any disruption risks losing them. Silver is stepping in now because he understands the moment. The WNBA finally has momentum, and momentum is fragile. Stability protects growth. Brinkmanship threatens it. With January 9th approaching, the window for voluntary compromise is closing. A deal will be reached. The only question is whether the Players Association helps shape it or has it imposed. The era of pretending everyone wants the same thing is over. Conflicts of interest are visible. Priorities are exposed. And leadership has made it clear, protecting the product comes first. When the deal is announced, the headlines will be loud. But the real story will be who read the moment correctly and who didn't. For the real breakdown beyond the polished talking points, follow Courtside Leaks. Every angle, every pressure point, every truth they won't show you.